Newcastle United have just destroyed Qarabag in the Champions League, in where Anthony Gordon scored 4 goals. And I think it's fair to say that Anthony Gordon loves playing in the Champions League this season for Newcastle United. And that now means that all 6 English sides will be progressing into the last 16 stage unless Qarabag pull back a miracle. But how good of a performance was that from Newcastle United today? 12 big chances created, 5 XG, 5. They go out there away. And before anyone says it's only Qarabag, well, Chelsea went there and they nearly lost the game. They drew 2-2. They went 2-1 down to Qarabag. Newcastle have gone out there in interesting conditions, to say the least. Now, I'm going to be completely brutally honest. I didn't get to watch all of the game because my stream was completely cutting out because the missus had something on the telly. But what I want to say today, from what I saw from Tonali, from Malik Chow, from Barnes, from Gordon, they looked very, very, very good. And what's really interesting is Eddie Howe, whenever he goes for a bad patch of form from results, and Newcastle United fans get extremely frustrated because, after all, let's be honest, Newcastle United are a big football club, and fair enough, they're holding the club to their own standards. They go out there, they comfortably beat us, then go out against Aston Villa away and win 3-1 in the FA Cup. And they've now just scored 6 goals away from home in the Champions League, which makes it 11 goals in their last 3 games. A huge game at the weekend against Manchester City, in which, let's be honest, now that they've pretty much won this tie of the Champions League, they can massively rotate at home against Qarabag. This Manchester City game almost becomes now the priority. I want to get through the lineup. I want to get through the goals. Make sure you go down and drop a like on the video if you haven't already. Make sure you go down and hit that subscribe button as well. We will be covering the Arsenal game, which is on later tonight as well. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Yes, you watching right now, we're less than 200 subscribers away from 89,000. What's really, really interesting is Newcastle United, there was pressure on them today. They had to go out there in an interesting, like I said, interesting conditions, playing against Qarabag, who have a decent home record. You have to go out there and get the 3 points. That is, well, not the 3 points, the win. That is the only thing that matters. And they started with a very, very strong team. Gordon in this competition has been a completely different Gordon to what we have seen in the Premier League this season. In the Premier League this season, he's got 3 goals and 2 assists in 18 starts. In the Champions League this season, this guy has played against PSG, PSV, Bayer Leverkusen, Marseille, Athletic Bilbao, Athletic Club, Qarabag, Union Saint-Gilles, and Barcelona. He scored 4 against Qarabag, 1 against PSV, got a goal and an assist against Leverkusen, scored a goal and an assist against Benfica, scored 2 against Union Saint-Gilles, and got a goal against Barcelona. And that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He has got 12 goal contributions in this season against Champions League teams. Now, I don't know why it's gone like that. But let me just quickly show you from a perspective of the statisticians out there that love this sort of stuff. He has turned up in massive games in the Champions League this season. Look at those numbers. He has got, to my knowledge, he's in the top 5 goal scorers of the Champions League this season. And they went back to a traditional back 4, which had Trippier and, of course, it had Lewis Hall starting in the centre-backs positions. This was their lineup. Now, for me, I'm a big fan of a lot of these Newcastle players. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Tonali is so important to every single thing that Newcastle United do. He is the engine. He is so important. And bearing in mind, they're doing this as well without Bruno Guimaraes, who wasn't, his injury. I think he's going to be out for, is it 4 weeks he's out for now? Which, of course, is absolutely massive for them. They're also doing that without Lewis Miley, Johan Wieser, Fabian Schär, and Livramento. So that is a number of key players. And I know people might say, yeah, but injuries happen to a lot of teams. But Trippier, Malik Chow, Dan Burn, and Hall, decent back line. Tonali, Voltemada, Willock, Ilanga, Barnes, Gordon. Now, you can play those 5 players, and they often rotate. You might see Gordon go into the 9. You might see him drop, out wide. You might see Barnes rotate as a false 9. You might see Voltemada come into the 10. You might see the only real Newcastle United player I have been somewhat disappointed with this season is Ilanga. Now, we got that big money move from Nottingham Forest, and I think he's only got 1 league goal this season, which, let's be honest, for a £50 million player, isn't anywhere near the standard. I don't even think he has got it. I think he has got 1 goal. But that all being said, a lot of their players this season have turned up and have delivered. Barnes has scored a lot of important goals. But today it was all about Gordon. And, they scored so early on, and pretty much the game was over inside, 20, 30 minutes. It was pretty much done, wrapped up. They get the first goal, which is completely fired home by Gordon. And you know what? Today he looked a lot more like his clinical self. One thing that a lot of people have said this season about him in the Premier League is he has been quite inconsistent. I understand that to a degree. But the question Eddie Howe will have is, how do you translate Anthony Gordon's form from the Champions League to the Premier League? Because he looks like 2 completely different players. He makes it 1-0. It's an assist from Dan Burn, of all people, who positioned himself in a really, really strong position, heart of the pitch. No suggestion of offside. And then he slots in Anthony Gordon at the perfect time. And as soon as they got that goal, it was almost like, well, I don't want to say that's game, set, and match, but it pretty much was. And then Malik Chow, I think, got his 6th goal of the season. What a signing he's been. A big leap from the centre-back, scores the header and makes it 2-0. And then Gordon gets a 3rd. Gordon then gets a 4th, And one thing that's really, really good is he has been very, very good from the spot this season. I believe he got 2 penalties against Union St. Gallis. He scored against PSV. He got 4 goals today. Really, really clinical from the spot. He makes it 4-0. 4-0 inside 33 minutes is absolutely ridiculous. And then they just went on a rampage. You're 5-0 up at half time. And when you look at the match stats, when you look at the momentum, when you look at all of the stats, no one in the slightest can say anything other than a Newcastle United win. They reduced Qarabag to 2 shots on target, albeit Qarabag did actually score. But when you look at these match stats, 5.56 XG, 22 shots. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Apologies. 22 shots, 14 on target, 13 big chances created, and 8 big chances made with 89% passing accuracy, 58% possession. But the most interesting stat of them all is when you look at the momentum chart. I mean, look at that first. You won't see a more dominant first half in the Champions League by any team. Now, what's really, really important is they have to go out there on the weekend and beat Man City. Otherwise, if Gordon doesn't perform, it would almost be like, well, how comes he's performing in the Champions League and not the Premier League? And you look at their last 5 games, they won against Aston Villa in the FA Cup. They beat us in the Premier League. And now they've just gone out there and comfortably dispatched of Qarabag, which is 11 goals, like I said, in their last 3 games, which means going into next week, the tie is pretty much done and dusted. And when you look at their fixtures coming up, it is going to be one hell of a bumpy ride for Newcastle United. I'm not going to say they're going to go and win a lot of these games, but they are playing Man City, Manchester United, City again in the FA Cup, Chelsea away, Everton at home, and Everton away have been very, very good this season. I think they've got the 7th best away record in the Premier League this season. But for Eddie Howe and Newcastle, it's 3 wins on the bounce. You're still in 2 cup competitions. You got to a decent stage of the League Cup, which was the semi-final. So Eddie Howe, although he's under a lot of criticism and a lot of pressure for where they are in the league, on domestic and European competitions, he has done very, very well. And if he can navigate through this tricky run by beating, I don't think they'll beat City, but if they can go and get a draw there and then, comfortably dispatch of Qarabag again, then beat Everton, going into that Manchester United game, it becomes huge because you look at where they are in the league table. They shouldn't be anywhere near where they are right now. You look at, in the league table, they're in the bottom half, or they're 10th, but they're only 10th on goal difference. And they do actually play, I think they've got Sunderland relatively soon, which is going to be, of course, a huge, huge game. But between now and the end of the season, They have to get this consistency back in the Premier League. You know, the goal difference for me is nowhere near good enough for a club the size of Newcastle. But if results go against them, they could find themselves back to 12th. But equally, they could go up to 8th in the Premier League. And then all of a sudden, you're talking about getting another European place. But let me know your thoughts down below. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you soon. I'm out.